You know, everybody, when you go to certain Sonic sites out there, or message boards, or wherever, DeviantArt, you name it, the one thing people will always end up complaining about certain things. It's no doubt. And one of the things people have complained about with Ian Flynn, believe it or not, is his tendency, if you will, to change things. What I mean is, from what they have seen, Ian Flynn basically has the tendency to write things the way he wants them written. That he doesn't take into consideration that things are meant to be a certain way, and yet he writes it to the point that he feels it should be written. Okay. Well, let me kind of see if I can explain this the best I can. See if I can explain this the best I can, if you will. More example, let's use this character here as an example. Fiona Fox. Let's use her as a big example. You see, a lot of people always question why Ian Flynn did what he did with Fiona. Why he decided to turn a character like Fiona bad. Now, some people have argued that what Ian did was exactly what a character like her needed. That she didn't really have no background. Well, she did have a background, but she didn't really have no purpose or no reasoning, real reasoning, if you will, to be with the freedom fighters. To some people, she was just there. Now, previous writers before Ian, like Ken and Carl, tried to give her a reason for being there. But many look at that as not a legit reason. I mean, heck, Carl and Ken even paired her off with Sonic to try to give her a reason. Still, there was no legit reason. And a lot of people, but then again, a lot of people feel as though there was a reason. There was a good reason. And if they would have kept her on as part of the team, instead of having Ian come in and do what he did, there might be more to the character than meets the eye. Some people look at what Ian did, and some people have even said this in certain rants and journals and whatever. People have said that the reason Ian did what he did to Fiona is the same reason why after Sally was roboticized, why he had her weaponized and modified. Because to them, he has some kind of, I don't want to say it in this manner, but some kind of fetish, if you will, for female villainesses. In other words, he enjoys turning the good girls, if not sometimes the good guys, but mostly the good girls, into villainesses. And why? Well, the only honest opinion I can come up with is to equal out the fact that you have more male villains and basically because you have more main male villains instead of main female villains. I mean, that is why he did what he did with Fiona, I mean not Fiona, but with the Iron Queen for over a year. He wanted to establish that, not only could you have a main villain, male villain in Dr. Eggman, Robotnik, but you could also have a main female villain in the Iron Queen. True, nowadays she's just one of his grand masters or whatever. But still, it shows that you can have a main villain in the opposite gender. And that's why, in my honest opinion, he did what he did with Fiona, whether we like the way it came about or not. That's why he did what he did with Sally after she was roboticized. Because he wanted to show the fact that there could be legit female villains out there. He wants to equal it out. I've mentioned this before a long time ago. It's to equal the playing field. And believe me, he's got a long ways to go, but that's why he did what he did. Now, does it make sense for what he did? In the eyes of some, it does, because it makes him more interesting, more likable, if you will, as a villainess or an anti-hero or whatever you want to call her. You know, it makes him more interesting. It makes him more, you know, like I said, more likable. Makes him more intriguing to some people. But you see, that's not the only way. But you see that, you know, the fans that don't like what he did just feel he's just copying out. The fans that have been very vocal about her and what's happened, the reason she turned bad and what happened with Sally and stuff like that, and what's going to happen with her next year, they're basically saying it all feels like a cop-out. Some people even came out and have said that, you know, when Eggman had Nagish accidentally use his magic to de-roboticize Bunny, that basically all Ian Flynn did was set up the inevitable for Sally. Now some have said, some have come out and said, well, of course you need the setup for the inevitable to happen. You got to give people a clue, basically, as to one of the main possibilities in ways someone could be restored. Not saying it would happen. But you see, again though, those that feel what Ian did with Fiona was nothing more than a cop-out to get more female villains. Like, he didn't really give her a legit, real reason. Now some might say, well, he did. She hung around, now some would come out and say, well, he did give her a legit reason. She did have a reasoning for going with Scourge. The fact that she found him to be more fun, more exciting. You know, basically, he was the kind of person that said, hey, you don't have to worry about responsibilities. You're with me now, kind of deal. Be fancy-free, if you will. Some might say that's a legitimate reason. Well, others would say it's not a legitimate reason and there was no reason for it. I think what really clued a lot of people into this was when Ian did his first story, which was Birthday Bash. And he had Scourge say the one line where he basically told Sonic that he just loves how his girlfriend made Sonic think that they were an idol. And as soon as you heard that, you kind of had the clue, an idea of possibly if you were against it, you're probably thinking, oh, please don't tell me Ian's going to do what I think he's going to do. And eventually he did. And especially with her disappearances and all that in several stories, further down the line, gave you that idea. Now, some might say, well, now others will say that, again, he did it because he wants to make her, he saw what we saw. In the fact that she didn't have no real personality and no real reasoning as to why she wanted to be part of the freedom fighters. No real reasoning. While others will come out and say there was a reason. She wanted to redeem herself. She wanted to, after seeing Sonic sacrifice himself in 125, she wanted to redeem herself and prove that she could be good. She wanted to try to live a decent life. Heck, according to some people, she was a roommate of Bunny Rabbit's. So it makes you wonder, right? Makes you think. But again, in my honest opinion, the reason he did with Fiona is the same reason he did with the Iron Queen. It's the same reason he's done what he's done with Sally. He wants to add in more female villainesses to equal out the main male villains. That's why he did it. You know, we may not like how he goes about it. But that's why Ian Flynn made Fiona Fox go bad, in my opinion. It's because he wants to equal out the villainesses by gender. I mean, do you think honestly we're not going to go another 75 or another 100 issues without maybe Eggman being replaced again by the opposite gender as a main villain for a while? You don't think we see that coming? I do. I see something like that happening soon. I just don't know when, but I know that sooner or later Ian Flynn's going to write something to where he has a female villain become the main female villain for an entire arc that may, just like with the Iron Dominion one, last a year, if not 6 months to a year, maybe more so. That, folks, is the reason why he did what he did with Fiona. That's why he did what he did with the Iron Queen. That's why he did what he did with Sally currently. It's because he wants to equal out the female villain line. He doesn't want to just say, okay, Eggman's your main villain, and okay, we'll have these occasional main villains or co-main villains or sub-main villains come in once in a while and take over the main role. I mean, look what he did for about, 8 months or so, or a few months. I think, yeah, about 8 months or so with the whole invasion angle with the Suppression Squad. He basically made Scourge the main villain of that. He made Scourge the main antagonist of that. Same with Fiona, made her the main antagonist and main villainess of that as well. Focus solely on them. That's why he did what he did. Just checking something out there, didn't know what I saw. But that's mainly why he did that for almost 8 months. And that's why he did for a little over a year the situation with the Iron Dominion and the Iron Queen. To establish that there could be more than just a main male villain, that there could be a main female villain. And that's why he did what he did with Fiona. That's why he turned her bad. You know, again, we may not like how he did it. We may not agree with it. You know, we may not agree with the fact that he did this to her. Instead of leaving her like that, we may not agree with it. But you know what? It's also, but here's the other thing in closing. Here's the other reason. It's the change of writers. It's the change of writers. If Carl Bollers would have remained on, there's no doubt, in my honest opinion, Fiona would still be part of the Freedom Fighters. No doubt about that. And even if, whether you like the guy or not, Ken Penders would have stayed on, she'd probably still be part of the Freedom Fighters. But do we really know? But here's a question you have to ask yourself. Do we really know that? Who's to say Ken and Carl wouldn't have done the same thing? I mean, Ken Penders had came out and basically said that he was going to do the Bunny Antoine wedding in issue 200, which would have made it a big wedding anniversary, big wedding-esque anniversary issue, right? But instead of going in that direction, what did Ian Flynn do when he came on board? He said, yeah, we'll go in that direction, but we're going to go and do it 26 issues earlier. So it's all about the change of writers. So in other words, if Carl Bollers, who many credit for making Fiona the way she was with the Freedom Fighters, as well as Ken Penders, if Carl Bollers, maybe even with Ken, would have stayed on board, maybe she would still be part of the Freedom Fighters in my opinion, but maybe not. We really don't know. But again, it's all about the change of writers, and that is why Ian Flynn made Fiona go bad as well. So that's all I'm going to say on that. So hopefully that answers some questions. You got any opinions and thoughts, let me know down below. Video response if you like, and I'll talk to you all later.